Israel is at war. Welcome back to our podcast. I'm your host, Barrett McNabb, and with me, as always, is the insightful Kimberly McNabb.
Hello, everyone. Today, we have a crucial topic to unpack: the renewed and intense war between Hamas and Israel. It is a topic that's deeply emotional and holds significant geopolitical importance.
Absolutely. It's been a turbulent few days, and our aim today is to shed some light on the evolving situation. Just to set up the stage, Israel Defense Forces, commonly known as the IDF, have stated their intention to take control of the Gaza Strip amidst the ongoing strife. We'll put a graphic up to show you what we're referring to.
The series of events was set into motion by a substantial surprise attack by Gaza militants. This has resulted in a tragic loss of life on both sides, with Israel responding with formidable airstrikes.
And the message from Israeli leadership is clear. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu declared to his citizens that they are not just fighting a routine military operation. They are at war.
The casualty figures are deeply saddening. Israel has reported at least 350 deaths, while Palestinian deaths exceed 300, not to mention thousands more injured.
But beyond the physical confrontation, there's also the psychological warfare. The fact that Hamas claims to have taken hostages, including Israeli soldiers and even American citizens, adds another layer of complexity to the situation.
So let's step back for a moment and consider the sequence of events. Early on Saturday, Israelis were jolted awake by the sound of sirens warning of incoming rockets, and this attack was multifaceted. We're talking about incursions by land, sea, and even aerial infiltration by paragliders.
That's crazy. That's just crazy. It's something out of a James Bond movie. But there's some discrepancy in the numbers. The IDF reports that 2,200 rockets were fired, whereas Hamas argues it was around 5,000. So let's talk about, they're arguing how many thousands of rockets were fired from Hamas. But it's reminiscent of the 50-day conflict in 2014, but the intensity seems to have increased, and Iron Dome is having trouble keeping up with the interceptions of these rockets.
The motivations behind Hamas' Al-Qaeda Storm operation are rooted in long-standing grievances. They attribute it to perceived attacks on women, desecration of the revered Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the ongoing Gaza blockade.
And in response, the IDF rolled out Operation Swords of Iron. A message from Netanyahu: Hamas is in for a reckoning. And while the military operations are underway, Gaza civilians find themselves in an incredibly perilous situation.
There's also a wider regional context. The Northern Front, with Hezbollah from Lebanon getting involved, and significant disruptions in the West Bank show the expansive nature of the conflict. Remember, these issues have historical roots, and the Israel-Palestine conflict being one of the longest-standing disputes in modern history.
Let's touch upon Hamas for a moment. It's an Islamist organization springing from the Muslim Brotherhood in the late 80s. Their non-recognition of Israel has been a sticking point, leading to many confrontations over the years. Both Hezbollah and Hamas are funded by Iran. When I was in Beirut, Lebanon, my long-standing project that I always did as a foreign area officer was tracking money laundering from the Iranian Republican Guard through Lebanese banking institutions and eventually making its way to Hamas and Hezbollah. With the stupid $6 billion gift just a few weeks ago that the United States did with as part of the negotiation of the prisoner swap with Iran, that's going to be a lot of money flowing to these terrorist organizations. Now, the Biden administration says none of this money is going to go into funding terrorists, but come on, let's not be naive. Iran will take the money and give it to the Department of Education or something, and then take the money earmarked for that department and shift it to nefarious purposes. I mean, seriously, if they really don't think there's going to be an end-around game of spending that $6 billion, how stupid can you be? But a lot of this conflict revolves around holy sites.
And the Al-Aqsa compound, revered in both Islam and Judaism, often finds itself at the heart of these confrontations. It is not just a religious site. It is symbolic of larger political and territorial disputes.
Internationally, reactions have been varied. Western nations, predominantly in the U.S., have condemned the Hamas strikes, while Arab countries are calling for de-escalation and peace. Interestingly enough, AOC and some of the Squad members are calling for a ceasefire. So Hamas gets to bloody the nose of Israel, and then they're not allowed to defend themselves and attack back. Immediately, the Squad is calling for a ceasefire. So it looks like they only think that one side should have some blood spilled.
Exactly. Well, looking to the future, the IDF is aiming for control over the Gaza Strip. In contrast, Hamas seems ready for all scenarios, even hinting at the potential of a ground conflict.
It's amazing. Already we've seen some IDF tanks, especially their Merkava, which is a combined tank and personnel carrier, which is a really cool design, being destroyed and some being captured. And so, again, when you look at how a conflict escalates in from a latent or incipient insurgency, guerrilla warfare, and then moving into a war of movement. That war of movement is when the opposing side starts to have maneuver forces, and armor definitely fits in that category. But it's a multifaceted, heart-wrenching situation. Our hope, like many around the world, is that a peaceful resolution and safety for all civilians involved. Remember, there's a lot of civilians in here that are being impacted, and they had nothing to do with the planning or the execution of this horrible attack on Israel.
Indeed. Listeners, we urge you to stay informed and keep tuning in to Azimuth Podcast for up-to-date information.
Yes, thank you for joining us in this comprehensive breakdown, and we'll be back with more discussions after these messages.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.